Hey guys, this is part one of a three-part series on my 1980s Cargill electric guitars. The reason why I wanted to do these videos is a couple of reasons. First of all, I have a lot of time on my hands at the moment, as we all seem to have in these interesting times. But also, just growing up, there was not heaps of information on all the Cargills on the internet, so I'm trying to kind of contribute to that a little bit. And the final reason is just to kind of promote local business and local community. So I guess when you get a Cargill or get your guitars fixed by the Cargills, you're part of a community and you're supporting local people, and we're all looking after each other, and I think that's really important in times like this. So I've decided that I'm not going to be playing the guitars. I'm just going to go through all the specs. There are some bad demos of me playing on my YouTube channel, but what I would like to do in the future is actually do some proper performances that are well recorded and upload those. So with no further ado, this was the first Cargill I ever got. When I was 12 years old, I was playing on a classical guitar, an old Yamaha nylon, and my dad said if I finished the first 3 guitar method books, he'd buy me an electric guitar, and so I finished them very quickly. Fortunately for us, Dad had worked with a guitarist by the name of Dario Bedino, who said if you're going to buy your son an electric guitar, you really need to go speak to Merv Cargill. And Dad took that great advice and went down to Seaford, and it just so happened that this guitar was in the workshop, so it was for sale on consignment or a trade-in or something along those lines. So, and Merv said to my dad, this is the right guitar for your son, and he wasn't wrong, because I have played it every day of my life since then. I've done thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours on this guitar, worn out the frets many times, and I absolutely love it, and I wouldn't sell it for the world. So, let's go on to the specs. This guitar is 1032, and Jim once told me that they started the serial numbers at 1000 because they had been making guitars for a long time when they introduced serial numbers, so they decided to start at 1000. So this makes it the 32nd guitar with a serial number. It was built in 1984. The most important thing, I guess, to talk about is the timbers. So this is classic Cargill construction right here, where we have these laminations of Cowrie and Blackbean. There's 13 pieces. Jim used to hand plane these, and told me he was built like a tank when he was hand planing these pieces. He had big muscles. I think this is a big part of the Cargill sound when we're talking about these types of Cargill guitars from this era. It's a super rigid guitar. The necks just do not move, and the quality, you can feel the quality through and through. Just a beautiful guitar. So starting at the headstock, it's got a veneer on the front and the back. The front veneer is flame, and it's got vintage tuners on it, which are the original ones. It's got a bone nut, which isn't original, and I'll talk about that in a sec. It's got a slab ebony fingerboard. I believe it's 16-inch radius because it's quite flat. And it's not as curved as a 9.5 in my opinion, so I guess it's 12 or 16. Could be. So I'd like someone to chime in actually, because I don't know a lot about that stuff. It has jumbo frets. I love jumbo frets. I've put them on 2 guitars now, and I haven't looked back. I think they're the best thing ever. It has clay dot markers, which I'm a bit of a snob for. I like the way that they change color over time. These ones are going a kind of a funky green and sort of cracking, and I love guitars that wear out over time and develop a patina, and you can see that in the nitro finish of this guitar, where the paint is wearing through and wearing thin. I'm a bit of a nitro freak. I love the softness, I love the feel, and I love how it wears. I'm really into that. Does it sound better? Well, I'll leave that up to you guys. Since we're at the back, we've got a one-piece string retainer made of brass at the back there. I just wanted to talk about the bridge. When I got this guitar, it had a Schaller locking system on it, and prior to that, it would have had a hardtail. After about 10 years of playing with a Schaller, I went back to the hardtail, so we had to put a block in here. Jim and Merv did the block. You can see Merv's done a really good colour match here, but of course, you know, we couldn't keep the lamination, like we couldn't keep the stripes going through. That would have been impossible to do, or would have looked funny if you tried to do it. Originally I had a Goto with modern spacing, and I had that for years and years and years, but since acquiring my other two electric guitars which have vintage spacing, I've decided to put vintage spacing on this. So it now sports a Callahan vintage hardtail bridge that sits on a brass shim, because on the way this guitar was made, the bridge actually needs to sit a little bit higher up to get it working with the neck. Next up is the electronics. So originally it had stacked single coils or stacked humbuckers, Seymour Duncan. Seymour Duncan were in a lot of the old Cargill guitars. I think prior to that it had full-size humbuckers because it's been routed for them. I used those pickups for like 20 years, and then I decided that I wanted to change, so I really like Sir products, and I put in some Fletch Landau pickups in it, and I think they sound great. Really cool. I love all the Sir stuff, and I love all the guys that play Sir guitars and Sir amplifiers. Cloth wire, CTS pots, oak Grigsby switch, copper foil, Switchcraft jack, all the good stuff. Really important. This guitar is amazing. I absolutely love it. It's a killer axe, and like I said, definitely not for sale, this one. Just an absolute beauty. Thanks for listening. So next up is my 1989 Telecaster. So what I forgot to mention in the previous video is I've actually bought my three 1980s Cargill electrics, one in each decade that I've been playing the guitar. So I got my number one hardtail Strat in the 90s, and I got this one in the noughties, and you're going to see my next one in the next video, which is my most recent acquisition. Okay, so the story behind this 1989 Telecaster is that having played a Strat solely for a good part of a decade, I really wanted a Telecaster, and I really wanted a Cargill Telecaster, so I would just scour the internet. It felt like every day I was on eBay or in the Trading Post or Gumtree or whatever, and finally a Telecaster came up on eBay, and it was for sale in Mount Dandenong, which is not too far from where I live. And I contacted the guy to say, do you mind if I come and play the guitar before I put bids in on it? And he agreed. So I went up and played the guitar, loved it, went home, chucked in bids, and I won the guitar. So I feel really, really lucky to have acquired this guitar. Let's get talking about the specs. This one's number 1127, so to my knowledge that means it's the 127th guitar with a serial number. It was made in 1989, so it's now 31 years old. A little bit different to my number one. This one has Schaller machine heads made in West Germany, when there was a West Germany. Gold plated. So this you see on a lot of older Cargills is the gold hardware and the really high quality tuners. It's quite typical, I think. The logo is now getting a bit bigger as well. We have a solid Cowrie and black bean core, like my number one. However, now we're seeing a walnut veneer on the front and on the back. So it is a neck through body, it's just that we have this cap on the front and the back. while we're at the back, I'll show you that I've got 6 individual string retainers, whereas on my other guitar I have a solid one-piece retainer. Okay, the neck on this one is, whereas my number 1 is a sort of a C, this is more like a D or a squash D. It's quite wide and flat. It has a slab ebony fingerboard, has the original frets, so they're pretty low, and I'm due for the jumbo fret treatment that I've talked about. It has my favourite clay dot inlays, which I'm a real snob about because I love the way they wear over time and get that funky vintage look. This one, interestingly, has a Bakelite nut. Merv used to make Bakelite nuts by hand, and they sound great, and I'm not going to change it because it's original. People often say, you know, put a bone nut, put a brass nut, but Bakelite, surprisingly, I wouldn't have thought this sounds really great, so that'll be staying. Okay, moving up. I should point out that all my guitars I run 12 to 54 D'Addario strings with a plain third. These guitars can totally take the heavier strings you can throw at them. I've even had 13 to 56, no issue. The only thing that what can't keep up with that is my fingers. So 12 to 54 seems to be quite nice and gives it a good sustain and a good depth of tone. But again, this kind of neck through body with the laminations, these guitars are just so solid they don't move. The necks are straight as, they stay in tune perfectly. I never, you know, if I do a gig, I'm not tuning throughout the gig. Just solid instrument and quality feel. When I acquired this guitar, it had a black pickguard which reminded me of George Harrison's Rosewood Telecaster. So this one actually has the nickname Harry. So yeah, it doesn't sort of look like that now with the white one that I've put on recently. But yeah, this is Harry. It has gold-plated brass hardware, the bridge and the control plate, and the knobs. But as you can see, that the gold has really started to wear out. I get lots and lots of compliments in regards to the patina here, and I'm a big fan of, again, guitars aging and wearing like that. I love that. I love this kind of relic look. And you'll see, because of the nitro finish, again, which I'm an absolute sucker for, we're getting the paint wearing through. I love nitro. Electronics, this one came with Seymour Duncan's. Great pickups, but maybe sounded a little bit stock to my ear or something like that. So I decided to change them to Lola vintage Telecaster pickups, and they're really nice. I like them a lot. This one has got a 4-way Oak Grigsby switch in it, so that gives us a 4th Telecaster sound. This is a great mod that Jim can do for you. Requires no routing or any holes. It just gives you this kind of pseudo humbucking mode that really gives you this thick, loud, humbucking kind of pseudo sound that, you know, it's there if you want it. If you don't want it, then you don't have to switch into it, but it's a 4th sound if you so desire. Cloth wire, CTS pots, Switchcraft jack. Just talk about the bridge a little bit. Vintage spacing, six saddles. I was thinking about going to the traditional 3, but number 1, I can't set it up on this bridge. Number 2, these are brass anyway, and I can intonate each screw, and it's solid and it sounds great, and it's part of this complete bridge, and the look of it and the sound, and it does all the right things, so I'm not going to change it. I have a little Stormtrooper sticker here. I like to have a bit of fun with my guitars. I am a school teacher, so we're always having fun and sticking stickers on our guitar and not taking life too seriously. Cool story about this guitar. I think I'm not going to hold him to it, but Ryan at Cargill said it was his favourite Cargill electric guitar. So I don't know if he was just pissing in my pocket and just trying to, cheer me up or something, or butter me up. But when he said that, I was like, wow, that's huge, because he's helped built so many of them, and he sees a lot of excellent guitars go through the doors. So yeah, this is it, my 1989 Cargill Telecaster, aka Harry. Okay guys, so this is the last guitar to show off in these videos. This is my latest acquisition. This is it. I think I've got enough guitars now. I guess the story behind this one is that for most of my life, guitar playing life, I didn't have a guitar with a whammy bar. I always played a hardtail Strat or a Telecaster, and I was craving the whammy, and the kind of joke is that I think I just wanted to be able to play Lenny, and so I wanted to buy a guitar that I could do that on. And I had seriously considered buying a custom shop Fender, because I think they're really beautiful guitars, and I have friends that have them, and I think they're really great quality. But this just, honestly, just because I'm patient and I waited, this came up and I was lucky enough to get it. So it came up on a forum. Someone was just sort of showing the guitar off, and I just casually mentioned that if it was ever for sale, please get in touch with me. And maybe a few months, almost a year later, I got an email out of the blue saying, I don't play the guitar, would you like to make me an offer? And we came to an agreement. What was really interesting was the guitar was located in Washington, D.C. So when the fellow that had this made for him in the early 80s, an American guy living in Melbourne, or Australia at least, when he moved back to the States, he brought the guitar back with him, and then sort of all these decades later, it's come back to Melbourne, which is kind of pretty crazy when you think about it. So that's the story behind this one. So let's get into the specs. This one is number 48. So it's the 48th guitar with a serial number, if we're assuming that serial number started at 1000. It was made in 1984, so it's the same year as my number one, but it's a lot fancier. A lot of typical, signature, almost compulsory Cargill isms in this one. Of course, it's got the Cowrie and black bean neck through body, which is just the classic Cargill thing of the time, and I think it's what's so special and unique about these guitars. Australian timbers, super rigid body. I took this to Jim and to Merv when I acquired it. It hadn't been set up for decades. The neck needed zero adjustment. They're just that solid. Just no movement, really rigid, quality guitars. So starting at the headstock, this one has got the classic color-coded headstock that all these Cargills had. This one's got a flame maple veneer on the front and on the back, and it's got the high quality West German made Schaller tuners in gold. Again, pretty typical of the era. This one has a bone nut, which I believe is it has a brass nut, which is original as far as I'm aware. It has got, when I got it, it had really bad vintage pickups, and just horrible. Actually, it probably never had a fret job in 36 years. So the first thing we did was put jumbo frets on it, which I absolutely love. They are just the best thing since sliced bread. So jumbo frets on a really thick slab, African ebony slab fingerboard. Clay dot markers, but they're hidden under these kind of funny stickers. Just being a school teacher, I just was having a bit of fun and just not taking anything too seriously, so we've got like some crocodiles and tigers and penguins and turtles and stuff. So they're my custom dot markers for today, or for this week. The neck. Of course, these guitars were custom made for the person ordering the guitar. So whoever, the person that had this guitar built for them specified a V-neck. So this has a V-neck. So no two guitars are the same. They were highly personalized. So my three Cargills have got completely different necks. Number 1 has a comfy C that Jim really raves about. My Harry, my Telecaster, has a wide flat D shape, and this one, my number 2, has the V, and it took me a little while to get used to the V, but a couple of days of solid playing, and I love it. It's great, no issues. Alright, moving right along. Again, quite a flat fingerboard. I need to ask Jim what is the actual radius of this, but I'm going to guess it's like 12 or 15 because they're flat. They're pretty flat anyway, almost flat. But I can't give you the exact spec. You can see this guitar has a pretty special top on it, and if you ever get a chance to see the book at the Cargill's place, it has in it every single guitar they've made, and all the specs and details. And this one went in the book as a Les Paul top. It's Canadian flame maple, and it's book matched. It's a little hard to see. Sorry about, I just have to excuse the quality of these videos. I'm just using my laptop. But it is a stunning top that everyone compliments. And of course it's got one of Merv's really famous sunburst finishes on it in nitro. Absolutely love nitro. I love how it wears. I love how it feels. And dare I say the way it sounds? Maybe not. That's a bit of a contentious issue. But you can see it's wearing, like the red's wearing through here from my arm, and it's just going to wear over time and look really awesome. So I'll just move on to the hardware. The bridge, it came with a bridge that I didn't like. It was a cast magnesium zinc alloy Fender bridge from the mid to late 70s, and it was gold, and for me it just didn't sing. I know Richie Blackmore makes them sound amazing, and a lot of those guys, but I just couldn't get my head around it. So when I say I upgraded it, I did my research and bought the bridge, and Jim installed this awesome bridge from a guy called Andy Wood from Woodtone in the UK. That's W-U-D tone, and it sits on a shim. It has almost like a knife edge, and the holes are scalloped for the screws, so it really comes back into tune really nicely. I've set it up to go both ways. I thought because I have a hardtail Strat, I'll try and set up this tremolo as wildly as I possibly can. I'm running 12 to 54 strings like all my guitars, so it's a bit of a workout, but it works pretty well. So yeah, gold, big solid block in the back there. Bent saddles, blah blah blah. The pickguard, as you can see, is that great kind of 60s look tortoiseshell, which I really love. A couple of funny stickers here as well. And cream plastics, just Fender plastics. The electronics, I really love Sir stuff, and I've got FLs in my number 1. I decided to put Sir V60 LPs in this one, which are a bit more of a traditional, cleaner sounding, vintage sounding Strat pickup, and I really like them a lot. They're a really sweet sounding pickup. Running through CTS pots and a Grigsby switch and a Switchcraft jack. It's really important to have high quality electronics in a high quality guitar. So, that makes sense, doesn't it? You're not going to put El Cheapo pickups in a custom handmade guitar. So what else can I say about this? I think I've got enough now for the rest of my life. I feel very lucky. I'll go back to my original point of why I made these videos, and it's just to get some information out there about vintage Cargills, and to also, I guess, encourage and I guess promote the importance of community, because that's what Cargill Custom Guitars feels like. It feels like a community. You walk in the door there and you feel like family. It's amazing. And I've known those guys since I was 12 years old, so Another example is, my guitar teacher, Tony Calabro, and Merv Cargill are best buddies. And it's, the more people you talk to, the more you realize you're part of this family, part of this community that's always going to be there and always going to look after you. And they make the best guitars in the whole wide world.